Hello everyone, my name's Adam and welcome back to the channel. Recently I picked up myself an Elegoo Mars, a mSLA printer from Elegoo. Elegoo? Elegoo? Elegoo. Elegoo. Anyway, that's a printer that requires UV curable resin, which, if you haven't already heard, is fairly toxic. Mostly, or basically when liquid. Once it's solidified, it's not toxic anymore, but in a liquid state, it is. So in order to be printing with UV resins on a regular basis, there's some safety equipment that you need, as well as other accessories to finish the curing process and clean the prints and basically post-process them after printing. So I've accumulated a bunch of stuff, equipment, things that I'm going to be using to do my mSLA, DLP, whatever you want to call it, printing. So I just want to run through those things. So if you want to get into something like this, then hopefully this will be a reasonably good guide to get you stuff that you might need and basically an idea of what it costs. I mean, DLP printers have come down a lot in cost. I got my Elegoo Mars for 219 British pounds, which is very cheap. But of course, you need a whole lot of other stuff on top. I've not necessarily gone for the very cheapest options here. I mean, I don't want to skimp on my own personal safety, but if you do, which I don't suggest you do, you probably could do it cheaper. So first things first, let's look at eye protection. I've got a pair of UVEX safety goggles, and these were not very expensive, but should be perfect for this application. You could probably get away with safety glasses, so just basically a front lens, but the addition of additional protection kind of sealed to your face means that if something splashes up and moves in a curving motion, it can't go round the back of the lens into your eye or anything like that. So this just provides that little bit of extra protection to make sure you stay safe. They do probably look a little bit silly, but I really don't care. I want to keep my eyes. So safety, eye protection, the first thing I've got is a mask that's suitable for working with volatile organic compounds, VOCs, or just organic compounds, which are volatile. So this mask is suitable for working with those, along with these specific filters. There are other filters that will also work for organic compounds, but you can't use filters that are designed for particles only, or particulates. So this actual mask set me back around £20, with an additional £12 for these reusable filters. Reusable means obviously you attach them on and you can use them a number of times. After a period of time, you will need to replace these with a new set of filters. This is a 6000 series mask with 6051 series, well, 6051 filters. I do recommend getting something that's from a reputable brand, such as 3M, for something like this. It's your own safety. Try not to scrimp too much on the costs. I'll leave a link below to a 3M spec sheet, which will give you some ideas of the different filters and masks that are available. My DLP printer came with one of these. Now, I'm no expert on mask and filtration systems, but this to me looks like a particulate filter system. So if you're working in an environment where there's particles, actual little physical bits of like dust, then this is probably, I mean, to be honest, I don't like them at the best of times. You put them on your face like this, put them over your ears, and then there's like a little steel band or plastic band that just forms to your nose to stop yourself breathing into your eyes. But I mean, the seal is not exactly that great, and it's just not going to protect you against the volatile organic compounds. This filter is for particles, and we're not filtering particles, we're filtering organic compounds. So you need a specialist piece of equipment. I would highly recommend getting a full piece of actual like gas mask, something like this. You can get ones with a full face lens, which are probably actually not that unreasonable, but this is the one I went for. The next piece of safety equipment is gloves, arguably the most important, based on you're almost certainly going to be getting resin contact with your hands if you don't wear them. So an absolute must. Well, these are also absolute musts, but still an absolute must for working with resin. So these are nitrile gloves, very simple, single use, disposable gloves. You put them on the hand like that and it stops you from getting resin on your hands. When you remove them, remember to at least, I mean, ideally you want to do the like special technique to get one glove inside the other and like both of them like totally closed up, but I tend to just try and take off one, hold it in the other, and then remove the second one over the top. So you get your pair of gloves in one glove, and you can then touch that side because it's what was the inside, and dispose of them safely. Speaking of disposal, because these are volatile compounds, they do have to be properly disposed of, so make sure you take them to your local recycling centre or somewhere that can dispose of them correctly. You may have to contact your local council or local authority to get the right place, because you definitely don't want to be dumping these down the sink, down the drain, in the bath, in the shower, at a local pond. None of those things are suitable. They need to be properly disposed of. So I think that's mainly it for the key safety equipment. Now let's move on to the curing stage. So because it's a UV cured resin, the UV light cures it during printing, but that's not a total complete cure. You still have to cure it additionally after the print in order to fully solidify the print, as well as to make sure any of the surface, You're basically making sure that all the resin that was on the surface is also cured or removed by cleaning it. So your first stage, after getting it out of the printer, is a bath in isopropyl alcohol. So the ideal solution for that is a sealed container. This is a standard kind of clip lock food container that we have in the UK and probably across most of Europe, probably in the US. They're probably everywhere by now, but they have basically this seal around the top, so you get an airtight seal. So you can put isopropyl in there. It might seep out through the plastic, probably a little bit, but it's an airtight seal. It's not going to come out. You can pour it upside down and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good idea to have. It doesn't have to necessarily be that big if your volume for your printer is not this large, but I just got this one because it seemed like a good idea at the time. One accessory you might want to have for washing your prints in isopropyl is some sort of container to kind of dunk them into, if that makes sense. So basically like a basket on the inside. I think that's pretty good. So that will get probably not filled with isopropyl. I'll just only use as much as I need for now because I'm not doing massive prints yet. I mean, massive. The build volume of the Elegoo Mars is not that big anyway, but get some isopropyl in there and then I can use that to clean off the prints. So after you've done your isopropyl wash stage, you can do a secondary wash. So basically the same thing again, but with some cleaner isopropyl alcohol. At the moment, I'm not looking for the very highest quality out of my prints. I just want them to work. So I've actually not done more than one bath at the moment, but I will set up probably a second one of these or another one of a different shape, depending on what I think it needs. But at the moment, I'm just using one bath. Advisable to use two for the best wash. After you've done your secondary wash, you can then finalize the curing stage. So you may want to remove your support material before or after this stage. It does depend a little bit on the design, how easy it's going to be to remove the support material, and how much the support material is actually supporting the structure before it's cured. Because while it's not cured, it will still be a little bit soft, a little bit flexible, and if you don't support it or keep the support structure on there, it may flex under its own weight if it's a particularly flexible piece. So to do the UV curing step, you need basically something to impart a lot of ultraviolet light onto your part. So for this, we've got not that, not that, not that, but this. So this is a roll of UV LEDs with a small little power connector, and it also comes with a power adapter and some fittings to fix it to something. So this will be really useful for something else. So let's just turn these on briefly. I mean, you don't want to be looking at ultraviolet light for any length of time with your bare eyes. It's really not a good idea, but we can probably just turn them on here and look at the wall, and that will reflect some of the light, but not all of it. I just want to see if they work. Conveniently, this power cable also has a small switch on it. So that's not done anything at the moment. If we then turn them on, that's really low power UV. So we're probably not going to be using the whole strip, so we'll get a little bit more out of them than that. There's only a 2 amp power adapter, so yeah, not very much at all. We'll see how we go there. Probably only maybe a quarter of this will be needed, in order to cure the prints. So how do you actually apply your light to your part? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it, but I'm going to use a DIY solution, which involves aluminium foil, well, kitchen foil, and a plastic box. So I'm going to use spray adhesive to spray the inside of the box piece by piece, and then line it with aluminium foil. That will give me a totally reflective surface on the inside of this box that I can then apply the UV lights onto, and that will give me all reflections around basically everywhere in the box. That won't yet be perfect though. We'll probably get patches that are brighter than others, and we're not going to get cure even in all directions. So what we then need on top of that is one of these. So basically you want something to turn your print around and around and around. So this can either be powered by 3 AAA batteries, or another power adapter. Now this is a 5-volt USB one. It's probably going to be really bad. 4.5 volts, 1 amp. I'm probably going to stick with batteries for this, so I got some rechargeable batteries to use in it. You can also get solar powered ones, but I don't think typical solar panels use ultraviolet light to power them. They normally power off the visible light as there's more of it from the sun. So the sun's light is only like 4% UV. It does actually have a fairly weighty glass plate on the top, which I'm not sure is going to help me in any way. And it also has some lights that shine up from the bottom. So I might just basically take the whole thing apart and only keep the bits I need, because that's what I like to do. But by all means, don't bother. I think it'll probably be fine as it is. Let's get this last one out, then we'll have a little look. So it looks like it's got a couple of speeds, on, off, and off. That's interesting. So what we've got here is lights only, and then we've got no lights and no rotation, and then lights and rotation. I would probably rather just take these lights out, maybe replace them with UV LEDs. That might be useful. Probably not though. And then we can just, it's really quite heavy with all the batteries in, but that basically will put our print on there, and that will keep it rotating to help get a uniform amount of ultraviolet light to all the different sides. So that's that bit. Now the next bit is a kind of something specific to my setup. So over in the corner where I have my kind of UV station, if you like, all the kind of stuff that I use for it, I have some LED lights. And it seems like because they're white LED lights, they for some reason seem to be emitting some UV. Because the room itself is fairly dark because I keep the curtain shut because I use video lights like this. And having a thick black curtain should stop pretty much all the UV coming into the room. Yet when the resin is in the bath with the lid off for just a couple of minutes, it develops this thick skin on the top, which comes off really easily. It's not a major problem, but it's going to be wasting lots of resin over time. I think, without having a UV meter, I think it's down to the fact that those UV lights, the LED lights that I'm using to kind of light the area, are a bright white and maybe have some element of UV shining from them. So, I mean, that's not ideal. They're basically a cool white LED. I might be wrong. It might be a total waste of time me doing this, but I'm going to swap them out. I'm going to swap them out for this. This is basically the same thing that I've already got fitted, but these LEDs are red. Now, red is a totally different wavelength. It's the opposite length of the spectrum on the visible light spectrum, the EM spectrum, to UV. It's obviously infrared, closest to red, ultraviolet. They're lower energy waves and they won't cure the resin. So a set of these red LEDs will make it kind of like a old school photo booth, photo studio, you know, where you have the like red room lights because it stops the curing in the, I think it's probably a similar process. So I'm going to replace those white lights with these red ones in the hope that it will still allow me to see plenty, but not cure the resin. I don't need to put them back in there. Unfortunately, those did not come with a separate power adapter, but I'm probably going to need to deliver a fair bit of power to them anyway, so I'll use the power adapter that I'm using for my current LEDs. I think that's all for this episode. One more thing quickly before we go. These have been used over at my workstation for a bit, so there may be some trace amounts of resin on them, so I'm wearing a glove. But these are just some of the tools that I'm using to manage and control the prints. First thing is this very small little palette knife. The blade is very, very thin and fairly flexible, which helps a lot when getting prints off of these surfaces. Now, the fact that it's metal is not great because it means you can cut or damage the FEP film and the aluminium print surface fairly easily. However, I've not had a problem yet, and because it is very thin, I can kind of just slide it without having to dig in at all, and that really helps when it comes to removing prints. It's just, I can't remember where I got it from. I think I got it free with some other printer, but anyway, it's worked out fantastically for doing this. I also have this air blower, but it is quite good for after you've done your resin cure after you've done your secondary wash, first or second wash with the isopropyl alcohol, you can use this as a kind of blower to dry that isopropyl off fairly quickly, and it will give you a good indication of whether that's sufficiently cleaned. These are some filters. These came with the Elegoo mask, and they're just to basically get some of the large lumps out of the resin when you put it back in the pot or back into the basin, however you want. I don't recommend trying to use this as you're putting the resin into the vat. It just doesn't work out very well because you have to like hold this and you'll probably spill it. I did. That didn't go well. So yeah, just a couple of, I mean, they're basically just paper filters with a mesh in the bottom. So the resin won't come through the paper in a short period of time that you're going to be using it, but it will obviously pass through the filter, and that's the idea. Yep, make sure you use these when you're putting any resin back into the pots, because you don't want to put solid parts back in your resin pot. Next, I have just a small pair of plastic tweezers. They're really nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but it just is a fairly delicate tool for picking up parts once they come out of the printer, but before they're really very cured, just in case you damage the surface, or if they're very fine, very small. A small pair of plastic tweezers just helps you grab things without using your big squishy fingers. The last thing is and I think that is now everything. I'll give you a bit of an update, hopefully, if I remember, about how this progresses and what worked and what didn't in a couple of weeks when I've been using my Elegoo mask for a little while. And of course, I'll be trying to publish a review of the Elegoo mask when I've used it for a while. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram for more behind the scenes and stuff like that. That's it for me today. I shall see you in the next one.